Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. This is live stream number 1141. If you're not really familiar with the show, let me point out it's super, super casual. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I'll normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby, which is what I'll be doing tonight as I ponder why must you hate the role-playing game that I love? I don't mean myself personally. We'll get into it. I think you understand where I'm going with that, especially if you happen to follow the show and watch from time to time. You'll know where I'm coming from with this. Anywho, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, because this is a live show, that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 whole minutes before you can take part in chat. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you check both those boxes, you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in, and I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Semper Buffo, Sean O'Donnell, Cthulhu, Reading Aid, Kevin R. Smith, Mike, and I will take a guess, the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D are with us tonight. So we will see what's cooking here. Jose Fernandez is popping on in as well. So I have to laugh. The thumbnail for this video is me with tears in my eyes, and I'm like, all sad face. Kind of funny. I guarantee I'll get at least one comment, something along the lines, whoa, what were you crying about, Jeff? Nothing. It's acting, baby. Tears on, well, it wasn't tears. It was teary-eyed. On command. Pretty easy to do. So there is that. All right. We're going to jump on into the news because the world of Gary Gygax, the Hermit. I almost started saying worlds. It is World of Gary Gygax, the Hermit, has arrived from Troll Lord Games. It is out in print. I've got the scoop. How tiresome these wars of the king. With these words or something similar, depending on who in court you listen to, Lodash the Lonely set off to the mountains in the east. He was last seen, books under arm, staff in hand, beard bound in iron, wrapped in a snug, well-worn travel cloak, and a pack with food and bedroll on his back, headed up the long trail into these snow-capped mountains. None have seen him since. As advisor to the king, it's not Lodash's role or place to determine which wars are tiresome or which are necessary. His is to be on hand with good graces and better counsel. Once each year, the annual summit of sages and wise attends the king, who this year has designs on greater lands around him. But he is wroth, for the most able of all, the sage Lodash the Lonely, has not answered the royal summons. In the past, this recluse wise man has obeyed. The king is in a fury, for at this most critical juncture, the ancient hermit seems to be defying the king's summons. Messages are sent to his various hermitages, but none return. Others range out, trying to follow his trail, but they've come back empty-handed. He lives, that is what previous practitioners of the divinatory and extraordinary arts promise. But where is he? A king's ransom is promised to those who seek out the hermit, find him, and bring him to the king. Thus, the journey begins. But this road of adventure is many-forked and deadly, and where it leads will surprise even the most veteran of players. This reprint successfully kickstarted, and it is now arriving in stores. It is available for order. Clocks in at 128 pages. It is a hardcover, and it carries an MSRP of $39.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $19.99. And of course, this isn't just a reprint of I think this was originally for Legendary Adventures by Gary Gygax, and now it's been ported over to Castles and Crusades. So this is a new book. It's just tweaked a bit as far as I understand. That's what I think. That is what I think. So let's see. We got a few more people popping on in the chat. Kathy Evans, Gleeman RX, and we've also got Walona's Cave and Chris Lundgren. Well, Chris Lundgren and Buddy are with us tonight. Buddy the Cockatiel. Keith Ulu says one of their favorite expressions is emptier than a hermit's address book. Yes. Very nice, very nice. Maybe we'll get an opportunity to check this out. I don't know. Troll Lord Games, it tends to be a little hit or miss. In fact, I just reached out to them today because I hadn't heard anything from them since early October. Sort of like, how come I'm not getting press releases and things like that? So I guess it basically turns out they don't do press releases. I could have swore they did before. So they're going to get me lined up so I get the news out to you guys. Because I stumbled across this. Plus, I've also had people in chat asking me about the Reforged books, which are they're supposed to be out. And I have had people in chat actually say, hey, Jeff, how come you haven't been sharing news about it? It's because I didn't know. I mean, you can tell me something, but if the publisher themselves doesn't tell me, I don't know. So Lotus Cave is also pointing out the 50% military discount that Troll Lord Games has. They also are very well known for their school pack that they send out to role-playing game clubs at grammar and high schools, I guess middle schools too. I know I don't think of middle schools. We didn't have middle schools in Chicago. I've mentioned that in the past. So yes, I always say grammar school. Other people have said, well, no, that sounds kind of weird. Like, well, that's what we called it. We call it grammar school. I don't know. Well, Lotus Cave says they really enjoyed the world building chapter of Castles and Crusades. Yeah, it's a really sweet deal. Reading Aid says $20 for a PDF is a steal nowadays. Yeah, usually at that page count, that's about the going rate. 120 pages tends to be around $19.99 for most publishers. Not all, but most. Speaking of one of those publishers where that page count usually means $19.99 for the PDF is Cubicle 7 Games. Next week, stores are going to see Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory Vow of Absolution. Here's what I know. A definitive guide to the Absolver's chapter of the Adeptus Astaris. Vow of Absolution is a detailed and in-depth guide to the Absolver's chapter of the Adeptus Astaris. It is, I think it's Astaris. Isn't that it? I don't know the ins and outs of Warhammer 40K by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, they are stationed within the Gilead system, and it features a wealth of expanded lore, locations, and characters. Bound by long-sworn oaths to defend the Gilead system, the Space Marines of the Absolvers now find themselves the Imperium's last bulwark against the encroaching darkness. With their flagship vessel and a number of their brethren trapped in the Gilead system by the opening of the Great Rift, the Absolvers find their numbers dwindling as they desperately defend humanity in a system cut off from the Imperium's might. On Gilead Primus, the ancient Absolver citadel of Castle Grigori is alive with more activity than its storied halls have seen in centuries, as the chapter desperately recruits and prepares new aspirants. Elsewhere, the ancient and venerable battle barge, Vow of Absolution, is stationed within the Reach, holding back the incessant raids by foul orcs, the arrogant Eldari, and worse still, their own traitorous fallen brethren. Vow of Absolution introduces new Tier 5 Astaris archetypes, exciting previously unexplored locations, and dives into the mysteries at the center of the ancient secrets of the chapter. Advice on running and scaling in military action-based campaigns is offered alongside a unique adventure designed specifically to introduce the new and exciting content into your campaigns. Vow of Absolution is a detailed look at the Absolvers and playing an Astartes warrior in Wrath and Glory, covering 3 new key locations of the Absolvers chapter, a detailed look at the history and lore of the Absolvers chapter, new talents, access to the armory of the Absolvers, introducing new war gear and equipment, dedicated psychic powers and litanies of battle for librarians and chaplains, the introduction of Tier 5 archetypes to Wrath and Glory, and new patrons to introduce to your games. This 128-page hardcover with PDF will carry an MSRP of $39.99. You can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for, you guessed it, $19.99. Always good to see the Wrath and Glory stuff coming out. And that's, yeah, I get it. Some folks don't necessarily care for the Gilead system setting and the game itself. But for a role-playing game that Cubicle 7 Games really had no involvement in its creation, and to get handed it when it was taken away from, Pegasus Spiel. Gotta say, I'm really surprised they're still releasing stuff for it, especially since you've got Cubicle 7 Games with their own in-house created Warhammer 40,000 role-playing game. But kind of cool that we're still seeing stuff coming out. And I remember when I talked to my buddy T.S. Lucart not too long ago, he had mentioned they had a lot cooking for Wrath and Glory. So it was not going to be going anywhere. So very nice. Very nice. Reading 8 says they went to grammar school too. Yeah, that's what we called it. I know. And I know some folks are like, well, no, it's grade school. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Moving right along, something else that's also arriving in stores next week is the slipcase set of Monte Cook's Diamond Throne. I've got the dope. A flock of gulls settles down on the rocks as the waves crash in around an ancient idol, the only remaining relic from a temple now forgotten by the descendants of those who built it. Down the coast lies a bustling city, heedless of the complex past, each individual living life as easily and as peacefully as possible. Giant ship captains standing 12 feet high issue commands to the black-furred bestial Sabiki soldiers aboard fantastic craft like those that once, hundreds of years ago, crossed the Great Eastern Sea. Cautious, brown-maned Litorian warriors watch those around them closely, while diminutive fawn and even tiny sprites dart about on their way to some great adventure. Stoic, Venetius-skinned Varric and draconic-featured Molsh stand among the human dock workers, conscious of their difference, but silent. Ah, yes, always like these fictional races. And try pronouncing those words, Jeff. Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's all pretend. It's all make-believe. Doesn't matter how I pronounce it. In this noble, giant-ruled land, explore the reaches of the floating forest. Discover the incomparable beauty of the magical crystal fields. Learn the secret of the God King of the Varric people. But beware the military might of the Chorim and the fiendish powers of the Shadow Trolls. Explore Monte Cook's legendary fantasy setting in a new edition of Diamond Throne, now powered by the Cipher system. As a set, these two print books come in a beautiful and sturdy slipcase. Unearthed explores the Diamond Throne setting and beyond with detailed information for every game master. Evolved details character creation steps and rules for every player. Together, these two books spell out unlimited possibilities for adventures within the land of the Diamond Throne. Diamond Throne is published by Here Be Dragon Games under license from Monte Cook and Monte Cook Games. It is sold through the Monte Cook Games website. This slipcase set, which contains two 218-page hardcovers, carries an MSRP of $79.99, or you can grab the PDFs together over at Drive-Thru RPG for $30. Gotta say, this is interesting. I understand this has been out. Well, I shouldn't say this itself has been out. Diamond Throne is a setting that has been around for a while. I have never seen it before. I think it was originally for D&D. I think it was maybe like 3.5, something like that. Kind of interesting. Kevin R. Smith mentioning they were wondering whether this was going to be for 5e, Cipher, or both. As far as I understand, it is only Cipher. I do not believe that there are stat blocks for 5e. Kevin also points out Diamond Throne works so much better as just a setting than as the basis for Cook's alternate player's handbook, Arcana Unearthed. So Kevin also says they think it was originally for 3.5 D&D also. But it does sound kind of interesting. So very nice. Very nice. So once again, this is going to be landing in stores, the slipcase set. Next week, of course, you can order it from Monte Cook Games, and that PDF is available right now. There is a fresh bundle of holding which arrived, which features solitaire rules from parts per million for various popular tabletop role-playing games. And I've got the deets on the deal. Adventurer. You can play many of your favorite tabletop role-playing games by yourself with the Solitaire Rules expansions in this all-new parts per million solo bundle. Solo play can help turn any rulebook into a quick start. Learn a new game, test your first adventures, and get a feel for play before presenting it to new players, or just enjoy yourself. Indie game developer Peter Rudin Burgess at Parts Per Million has designed dozens of separate solo rule supplements for many role-playing games, large and small, as well as play aids and books of helpful solitaire tips. Using techniques such as the flexible oracle method, where you roll dice to answer questions, along with cut-ups, short texts that inspire creativity, you'll play full-featured, surprising adventures that push your creativity and keep all the action centered on you alone. Keep in mind, These parts per million third-party supplements add solitaire options to a wide range of games, but the core rules for those games themselves are not included in this offer. So to use any of the solo supplements that are on offer, you must actually already own the original games they support. For just $7.95, you'll get all 7 titles in the starter collection, which has a retail value of $44, as DRM-free PDFs, including the Player's Guide to Solo Role-Playing, 3 volumes of helpful tips in the Easier Tools series, Easier Solo Play, Easier Solo Game Journals, and Easier Solo Mystery Play, and 3 sample solitaire rulebooks. Basic Solo Role-Playing System for basic role-playing from Chaosium Inc., Hunter for Monster of the Week, and Masked Hero for Masks a New Generation. If you pay more than the current threshold price of $20.79, you'll level up and also get the entire bonus collection with 25 more titles worth an additional $108, including 11 more solitaire rule sets. 13th Solo for 13th Age, Alone in the Loop, yeah, you guessed it, Tales from the Loop, Dungeon Crawl Solo, what could that possibly be? Dungeon Crawl Classics, Lone Star, Mothership, Mastermind, The Between, Old School Solo, Old School Essentials, and other OSR games. Solo Adventures for Stars Without Number. Well, that's the title. I don't need to tell you what that's from, or for, I should say. Solo Core, which is for 2D20 systems from Modifius Entertainment. Solo Phase Rip, Solo in a Lost Cause for Silent Legions, and Trophy Solo. Trophy Gold would be my guess. It doesn't say, but that's my guess. As well as 14 cut-up solo books with thousands of text snippets to help inspire your solitary creativity. These savings for this bundle will run through February 3rd. Interesting. I don't really play solitaire role-playing games. I especially am not a big fan of like the journaling games. It's not kind of my style, but still, if you're interested in just about any of these various different solo versions of some very popular role-playing games out there, this might be worth a peek. Well, especially even just the starter collection, if you'd be interested in like Solo RuneQuest or Solo Call of Cthulhu, might be something you want to take a peek at. Very nice. Very nice. Pete Strakulich is with us, as is their Zarathustra Owens, also joining us in chat. I got to say, I don't recognize that nickname, so it might be a first time or second time visit in chat for them. So welcome aboard. Tessie Trekkie also mentions, hello all. I made pre-drafted notes for Jeff's disgustingly hateful topic tonight. Yes. I don't know if it's disgustingly hateful. So actually, it's really not. It's the exact opposite of it. But, you know, you'll see. All right, final news piece, now available in PDF from Oddity Press, is Grimwild, cinematic fantasy role-playing, and I've got the skinny. Grimwild is a streamlined, character-driven, cinematic fantasy role-playing game. Say that 5 times fast. The goal with Grimwild is simple. Take Dungeons and Dragons inspired heroic fantasy with its 12 classes and super tropey monsters and match it up with a super fast cinematic narrative rule system. The rules are concerned with the dramatic over the realistic. This one is D&D realistic. And minimizing detail tracking. Game is very low prep for the game master. The fiction maps to the rules simply on the fly. Designed to run in your own setting or a published one, or you can use their point crawl exploration system and collaborative world building to create emergent storylines. Characters earn bonus dice for pursuing self-set goals, pushing the story in the direction they want. The Game Master is given a clear GM framework of principles and moves to run the game by. Get strong player buy-in with the adventuring party creation system and creative freedom for the players. The rules create fluid action and gets rid of the mechanical slog that bogs down D&D. All of this with great art from artist Per Young. I'm sure I mispronounced that. Creating a consistent vision throughout the book. So who is Grimwild for? D&D 3.5e, 5e, and Pathfinder players will appreciate the low Game Master prep, easy-to-learn mechanics, and the focus on character goals and letting players push the story. OSR and new SR players will enjoy the straightforward resolution system, sandbox-friendly gameplay, and ease of adapting modules from other systems. Lots of rollable tables help as well. Narrative game players will take the fiction-first resolution system with a focus on player agency and narrative currency that fuels drama. And there is a lot more to this than what I'm sharing. In fact, if I read all the sell sheet info, we would be here for about another 5 minutes. This 180-page PDF of Grimwild cinematic fantasy role-playing can be had over at Drive-Thru RPG for $20. Now, I do want to mention there is a free version of this. It clocks in at 137 pages, which I was very surprised. So it's not a quick start. It is pretty much the complete game. Now, I don't know if there's artwork in it or not. A lot of times with freebies, you're not going to get much art. But still, if you're curious, because I got to be honest, I am curious about this. It does sound pretty different, and it is actually selling very well over on Drive-Thru RPG, from my understanding. Chris Lundgren asks, Jeff, can I put that game in the show notes? I will have a news piece about that tomorrow. It's actually already scheduled over on thegaminggang.com. Always keep in mind, any news item that I share here on the show always has a news piece over on thegaminggang.com. It's got all the links, all you need to know. And yes, I do have a link to the absolutely free version of Grimwild. And strangely enough, I kept wanting to call it Grimwald. Griswold! So it is CD8D Man. Welcome aboard. I certainly guarantee I've not seen that nickname before, so might be a first-time visit for you. So make yourself very comfortable. It says, it looks more complicated than old school essentials and similar, maybe more of a middle ground between modern D&D Pathfinder and an OSR game. I don't. Oh, it's Sedated Man. There we go. Nice. I gotta say, from what I peeked at, because like I said, there was loads more as far as the sell sheet info. It looks like it shares some DNA with Powered by the Apocalypse games out there. Now, I'm not saying that it is powered by the Apocalypse engine, but it looks as if, because it even mentions Game Master moves. And moves are a term used by PBTA games. Although there are some that are, like, as an example, could you claim that City of Mist is powered by the Apocalypse? Kind of, right? It's like Band of Blades, powered by the Apocalypse. Yeah, pretty much. So, Nero's Fiddle. Why do you have to hate the role-playing game I love? How else am I supposed to know who my enemies are? Dave S. is also joining us in chat. Chris Lundgren points out that I convinced them to get Mothership, and the wife got him the deluxe edition. Yeah, it's good stuff. I did my review. I shared it. So there you have it. There you have it. Chris Lundgren says they've got Fate Condensed and Savage Worlds Deluxe rules, which is easier on the brain. I'm not super familiar with Fate. I mean, I go way back. I remember Fudge. It's essentially the same thing. And all depends. Are we talking Savage Worlds Adventure Edition? Because that is different than previous Savage Worlds. I gotta say, Savage Worlds is pretty easy to wrap your head around. Larger size die, you're better at doing stuff. And then, of course, depending on what game you're looking at, some have little crunchier rules that are added in than others. So, I mean, Fate is, if it's, much like Fudge, which is what I understand it basically is, it's like the latest edition of Fudge from way back in the day. It can be a little odd. It can be a little odd with the plus, the minus, the blanks. But I can't really give you a great answer on that because I have not delved into Fate. So anyway, so that is the news for this evening. Of course, I mentioned Drive-Thru RPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up. Help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, Chris says, thanks, that answer was helpful. I didn't think it was. Sorry. I wish I could have been more helpful. If you like the video, if you dig the channel, hell, if you like what we do, you can always swing on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Oh, that's delicious. And there are a few of you who recently swung on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and made not small donations, such as Kevin King, Agile Monk, and our good friend of the show, who is gaming tonight, so he is not hanging out with us, the Madman. Yes. So thank you very kindly for those of you who use those banner ads and or visit paypal.me/thegaminggang. It is much appreciated. All right. So tonight, I am going to kind of discuss or ponder, maybe is a better word. Why is it that some gamers out there just have to spew all this hatred at other role-playing games that they don't even play? Really doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me. I don't understand it. I personally think it's not good for the hobby. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
happened to you?
I lost my head over Wilkins Instant Coffee. Have a cup?
Yow!
What do you suppose upset him?
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, London, Paris, Moscow are key targets. The whole world is under attack. Can it survive?
We are the survivors of a disintegrated solar system. At this moment, the remainder of our fleet is circling your globe.
What do you want with me?
Arrange for your world leaders to confer with us in the city of Washington.
They set up an electronic screen. The artillery doesn't penetrate.
Never before has the screen reached such heights of excitement. Breathtaking spectacle. Hair-raising terror. See the saucermen's high-frequency disintegrators. See flying saucers travel thousands of miles in seconds. See great cities leveled by flying saucer monsters.
Russ, look.
The same kind of thing that's watched us since the beginning of the project.
People of Earth, attention. People of Earth, attention. This is a voice speaking to you from thousands of miles beyond your planet.
They're coming down to take over. They made that clear to us in the saucer. To the best of our knowledge, my wife and I are the only ones left alive.
Yes, bust out those George Pal special effects. Funny enough, if you're around my age or a little older, right? So I'm 57. I remember pre-Star Wars. And of course, you know, I was such a smaller kid at that point. I mean, I wasn't going to see like Silent Running, which is a fantastic movie. Don't get me wrong. But when you're, I don't know, like 8 years old, you know, like, oh, let's go see that hippy dippy. Let's go see that hippy dippy Bruce Dern science fiction movie with the really good special effects, because those special effects were actually really well done. But it's sort of funny because we would always look forward to when it was usually WGN here in the Chicago area would have War of the Worlds on. And it'd be like, oh, yeah, War of the Worlds is it? Because, you know, those were like top of the line special effects for, you know, like 1975. And then Star Wars comes out. It's sort of like, yeah, okay. Yeah, War of the Worlds is on. Hey, just want to see that television camera. Just get alien head. Keith Lewis says, WGN for the win. Yes, world's greatest newspaper is what WGN stands for. Because, of course, WGN Radio in Chicago was owned by I think it was the Tribune, if I remember correctly. Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, yes, it was the Tribune. So Love Fist is with us in chat. Welcome aboard. Chris Lundgren says they're the same age. Grown Yards unite. So let's see. Tessie Trekkie says when someone criticizes their game, they interpret that as a personal attack on them. I'm a bad person, as an example. They then lack the social skills, graces, care to respond, except with pure rage and hate and slurs. All right, so let's discuss. So tonight's topic is, why must you hate the role-playing game I love? And if you have a chance to see the thumbnail, I'm like all sad. I've got tears in my eyes. So let's discuss. Because as much as I can have a conversation by way of chat and people leaving comments in the comment section after the video's done streaming, we're going to try to do this, right? Because I am curious. I am curious what inspires people to go onto social media and absolutely flip out about other role-playing games that you know damn well they're not playing, that they have no interest in, that they have not invested any of their hard-earned coin. They haven't spent any ducats on this, yet they have to go out of their way to complain and whinge about stuff. And I do understand why some social media accounts do this. And it's to play to their audience. So, like, I'll give you a great example. Secrets of Blackmore is a documentary about, it's mainly about Dave Arneson. And it is promoted as the story of the creation of D&D, the earliest days of D&D, which really isn't true. It's all about Dave Arneson and his wargaming buddies, and the vast amount of the runtime of this documentary is about that. And it talks about their various different ways of introducing role-playing aspects into these war games, which in itself is kind of cool. But the reality is that it's not necessarily the creation of D&D. Anyway, and I've seen the documentary. It's fine. Yes. So J.D. Sewell 3002 or 3002 said it wasn't a bad documentary either. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a bad documentary. I watched it. I thought I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But the way it was being promoted just wasn't really what it was. So, and I think they've gotten away from doing that sort of promotion of the documentary these days. Random guy says, haters love to hate, ignore them. It's easy. It's nice to have positive mindset in that case. I agree. Bosk von Living Dreams is with us in chat. Might be a first-time visit. Chris Liner says, yeah, they saw it. They agree with me. They also thought it was a little on the long side. I agree. I felt it did run a little bit long, and they started to kind of spin their wheels a little bit. But regardless. But funny enough, their social media accounts are constantly harping about Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. All the time. And I sit there and I think to myself, okay, so is that incenting anybody to like check out your documentary? I don't think so. I'm like, don't think so. So Kevin R. Smith says, Arneson's original Blackmore rules didn't look much like we know as D&D. For example, he had dozens of abilities instead of just 6. And if I remember correctly, I think it was a 2d6. You had a score and you had to roll lower than the 2d6. And they had things like sailing and cooking and long swords and pikes and all these other things. Pete Stracklich says, I'll admit that it was a bit okay, hang on. Pete Stracklich says they admit they were a bit distasteful about Candela Obscura, but it was only because they were disappointed with Critical Role's stance on the open game license scandal. I waited for them to take a stand. They did nothing. Well, that's not unusual. It's not unusual. I mean, okay, it's along those same lines, right? So, I should point out, over on Humble Bundle, this has absolutely nothing to do with what we were talking about, but I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the news. My absolute favorite comic book series of all time is part of a Terry Moore Humble Bundle where you can get pretty much everything Terry Moore's ever done for $20. And my all-time favorite comic book is Strangers in Paradise. It is fantastic. I love that comic. It is the only comic book ever to reduce me to tears. And I don't mean crocodile tears on a thumbnail for the video. I mean real tears. Excellent, excellent comic book. I love everything that Terry Moore does. I always do my best when we go to San Diego Comic-Con to say hello to Terry Moore. He's always very, very nice, very gracious. Anyway, so I wanted to make sure, don't forget to say that. All right. So, as an example, Neil Gaiman, there is huge accusations going on about Neil Gaiman. And every time we turn around, there's more accusations of sexual assault, abuse, and so forth. You know, Netflix. Has Netflix taken a stand? Have they said anything? No. I mean, because their hands are kind of tied. I think in a lot of ways, completely different circumstances, of course, but Critical Role, same situation. Their hands were tied. You know, they pay their bills. Their lights are kept on by Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, at least at that point in time. That's one of the reasons why everybody's thinking that their next season is going to be Daggerheart, although it's not been confirmed as far as I know. As Keith Ulu points out, Critical Role was between a rock and a hard place with Wizards of the Coast in the OGL fiasco. Lovefist says, Netflix want to get paid. Yeah, plus they've already paid. They've already shelled out a bunch of money. Tessie Trekkie says, is there a difference between I won't play game X, GURPS, as an example, because I hate the rules in in-person conversation, and I hate GURPS on Blue Sky? What I'm talking about is, and, you know, it's very possible that many of you don't encounter this online, that maybe you don't see these things pop. It's not, oh, you know what? Call of Cthulhu sucks. I hate Call of Cthulhu. That's well within everybody's right to say that. Although I say it quite often that I don't hate anything. That is far too strong a word to use on something that you just dislike or couldn't care less about. What I'm talking about is some of this piss and vinegar is basically how I would kind of present it, is just so over the top. And it gets, a lot of times it starts getting into like a personal level with some of these people. Now, I'm not saying that Secrets of Blackmore has done this. I just was using them as an example of 80% of the posts that they have on social media is, oh, this is why Dungeons and Dragons sucks. And it's sort of like, okay. It's like, I don't understand. Like I said, once again, if you want to preach to your choir, that's completely up to you. But I don't personally think that it's really getting anybody anywhere. So as an example, you get a lot of people who get really upset about Dungeons and Dragons. And the direction Dungeons and Dragons has gone in since probably 3rd edition. I guarantee there were people who were not happy how 3.5 turned out. A lot of folks thumbs down on 4th edition, 5th edition, very popular, but we already know that there were some outside influences. The aforementioned Critical Role as a great example, which led to some of that popularity. And then, of course, we've got the new 5.5 edition, which is a new edition, which isn't a new edition, but it's a new edition that a lot of people are not too keen on. And I think the reality is it's mainly the presentation that people don't like. And I'll be the first to say that I don't think the artwork's good either. It's like, wow, that's not very inspiring. Where it used to be, you'd see Dungeons and Dragons artwork was like, oh yeah, heroes battling dragons. And it'd be, oh, look, ooh, we got a new piece of artwork from Larry Elmore. Wow, oh man, I love that. That's so cool. Now it's, oh, everybody's sitting around sipping tea, read their grimoires, and okay, I guess that's what D&D has become. Okay, fine. If that's what it's become, who cares if you don't buy any of the shit? If you don't have any investment, what is the point of getting so worked up about it outside of just being a crank? So, Sedated Man says they see role-playing games as flavors of ice cream or soda. Sometimes I want vanilla or chocolate. Sometimes I want pistachio. Ugh. Not a fan of strawberry, but it's cool if you do. Yeah, I agree. See, we've got one really big tent for our hobby, and we can welcome a lot of people into this hobby. But I think that a lot of this sniping that people see deters them from actually getting involved. And it's kind of funny because it's not just gaming. It's everything in this world now. Everything's got to have its proponents and its opponents. It doesn't matter what it is. If people would complain that the sun's shining today, God damn that sun sucks. So tired having to go water the lawn because of that fucking sun. It's like, okay. Clement RX says dwarves clean the dishes at the beginning of The Hobbit. Now with D&D 2024, you could role play that. Or them making hot cross buns in the forge there. Break Loose Fist says D&D has a brand monopoly. It needs to be good and simple for new players. Healthy D&D is good for all role-playing games. It's sad the state that it's in. But the reality is a bad Dungeons and Dragons is not going to drag down the entire hobby. Now, a bad Dungeons and Dragons might deter newcomers to the hobby. Because one thing that I also want to point out is that, I mean, there are people out there who legitimately have tried a role-playing game and they didn't like it. And like they tried it at a convention, or maybe they played it at their game store or something like that. And they didn't care for it. They didn't like the role-playing game. Sadly enough, the majority of the time that someone who's not played a role-playing game tries a new one and doesn't care for it, it's not really the game's fault. It tends to be the game master's fault. Now, unfortunately, I never have an opportunity to play that many role-playing games as a player. because, of course, I'm a forever GM. But I will say I have played some role-playing games that I was not familiar with, but I was like, yeah, that's cool. And at the end of the session, sat there and thought, well, you know what? I can't tell you if that game is any good or not because the game master just was not very good. So I think sometimes that plays into it. So if you run across people who are saying, well, you know, I tried XYZ game once, I didn't care for it. You should find out what they didn't like about it. And I'm going to tell you, more times than not, it's going to be that they didn't like how the game master ran the game, or that it was boring. Nothing happened. The game master was too focused on the rules and let's make sure that we play this right and stuff like that. But let's see. Miserable Daystar. Damn you, Miserable Daystar. Random guy says, we live in the golden age of role-playing games, solo games, board games, and indie creators. When you spend your money on them and not these weird political greedy companies, it does hurt their wallets. And yes, I'm not telling you shouldn't be hurting the big publishers that you don't care for their products. I say it all the time, vote with your wallet. You know, why get worked up about something to be, freaking out online about it? Don't buy it. Who cares? It's just weird. It's just how much negativity is out there in the public space about our hobby. And I find it to be irritating. And I also find it be confusing. I don't get it. I mean, you know, I have issues with certain publishers out there, but you don't hear me ripping on their games because I don't care. Because, like, I don't focus on them. I ignore their releases. Okay, great. I don't feel that I have a need to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, this game is crap, even though I've not played it. Because that's something else that we see, too. We see a lot of anger aimed at stuff that people haven't even purchased or played or even looked at outside of maybe they saw some preview artwork. Like what's the newest thing, the latest rant that people were going on about Dungeons and Dragons? It was the monster manual, and there being male versions of certain creatures like hags and I think Medusas. I know it's hags, Medusas, and I think there are a couple of more. Dryads, I want to say, I believe, are also another one. And there were these various different social media accounts that were just going bonkers about it. Oh, they're disrespecting mythology. Okay, it's mythology, it's legend. I don't think it's going to take it personally. So it's sort of like, what? Kevin R. Smith says, Inkabai and Succubi can both be male or female. TJ is with us in chat, disrespecting mythology. Yeah, it's like, I saw one, in fact, it was multiple tweets. They had a string going talking about how Wizards of the Coast was disrespecting the legends and so on and so forth. And it was kind of like, come on, let's get real. Tessie Trekkie says, each of these player types can be catered to and is large enough to support a group or community of its own. Role-playing games needed to be broad tense in terms of appeal. More games these days can appeal to a niche. Oh, yeah, most definitely. But once again, I mean, if I see something that maybe it's emailed to me, hey, Jeff, could you share a news piece about this? And I take a peek at it and I'm like, really not, turning my head. I just don't share news about it. I'm not going to sit there and be like, ooh, I better go online. I better go online and voice my displeasure with this. Pete Strakowitz says they agree this is a golden age because all the amazing independent game designers. If I was invited to play, it doesn't matter what it is, I'd try it. So many great systems, so little time. I mean, there's certain topics and settings that would not interest me, no matter what the setting is. But still, I agree with Pete Strakowitz for the most part. For one, if anybody asked me to play in a game, I'd be like, well, what? Who, me? You're talking to me? Random guy says these people who complain online are also paid to do so as well. They get paid by the companies themselves to promote their products, make them go viral so more people hear about it. They also use bots, yes. TJ says, I'm sure the Mythology Corporation will have strongly worded letter about this. Tessie Trekkie says, as a queer person, I'm all for a sexy queer male Medusa turning me to stone. Maybe not the stone part, right? Pete Strakowitz says, Succubus Blues by Rachel Mead. I love that book. I'm not familiar with that. Kevin R. Smith says, being in the public domain means anybody can remix it any way they want. Yeah, that's right. I'm looking at you, Steamboat Willie. TJ says, mythos and mythology are an ongoing process. It's malleable. Yes. Chris Lundgren says, great game to play mythology. He's talking about mazes and minotaurs out there. Doom Colonist says, hey, Jeff, want to play in a game? Who, me? Are you talking to me? Is there someone else named Jeff in chat that maybe you're directing that to? Because that's probably the case. That is probably the case. Anyway, to sum up, I just think it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I get it. There's this weird sense of entitlement that people have nowadays. There's also this, and this has been emerging more and more in the past 10 years or so, that everybody's an expert on things that they know absolutely nothing about. We get a lot of that these days. It's like, okay, all righty. So I know that's part of it, but still, I think it's pretty ridiculous to see things like that. And like I said, a lot of the hatred is focused at Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. And all that really does is bring more attention to Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. Because, like they always say, I don't really believe it's true that any publicity is good publicity, even if it's negative publicity. It's like, no, I don't think that's the case anymore, especially with some of the controversies and things floating out there at the moment against certain people. Break Loosh Fist says, I dislike that most third-party content is for one system because of the networking effect. Well, the reality, too, is that the vast majority of third-party product out there is absolute dog shit. Doesn't matter what system it's for. The vast, vast majority of third-party content that's, say, available over at DriveThruRPG or Storyteller's Vault or Dungeon Masters Guild is just absolute crap. It is absolute crap. Give you a great example. There are thousands of entries, probably tens of thousands of entries. Although what was the last count? 100,000 PDFs at DriveThruRPG, something like that. So maybe not tens of thousands, but there are thousands of fantasy adventures for sale on DriveThruRPG, which are marked as OSR. that they are OSR adventures, and somebody buys it, they download it, and it's a 5e adventure. Thousands of those. There are thousands of products out there on Drive-Thru RPG that, like I said, is just absolute trash. So when you encounter a third-party content creator or publisher that does good work, you want to support them, because it's so easy for third-party publishers to just get absolutely lost in just the glut of crap out there. Now, of course, it's a little different when you're looking at third-party content for, say, Dragonbane, as opposed to Dungeons and Dragons, because, of course, there's far less content for Dragonbane in the third party than there is for 5e. Let's see. So Sedated Man says, I don't have enough time to play the games I have. Not worth wasting my time complaining about the ones I'm not interested in playing. I am right with you on that. Right with you on that. Random Guy says, when people say on people's YouTube videos, thanks, but no thanks, like in their head, the creators have to change their content to be specifically for them. These people need reality checks. You don't have to tell me that. Or when I get someone who leaves a comment and it just drones on and on and on and on about their opinion on something. And it's, a lot of times it's got like nothing to do with the actual video that they're commenting on, or it's very peripheral to what that video is actually about. And like I'll do a review of something, and I'll get somebody post a comment, and they're like posting their own review and they disagree with me. And I'm like, fine, whatever. But it's sort of like, you do realize I don't give a shit. I shared my review. Those are my thoughts. That's it. Zarathustra says, when it says 5e, I skip. Maurice Deary is joining us, I believe, once again. And we've got another first-time visitor in chat. Welcome aboard. Says, hate seems to be in vogue at the moment. Just look at the flack D&D creators are receiving for living in their time. Just play what you like. Don't hate. Yeah, right. What I would love to see, and I know we'll never see this, but I would love to see it. If we could see 10% of the energy that's devoted to ripping on stuff that other people enjoy, if we only took 10% of that energy and put it towards promoting things that the people who whinge and bitch and complain post about them amplifying what they like, we'd be in such a better place. We really would. I mean, I would love to see, because I almost never see the social media accounts that pop up ripping on other games, other game systems, other publishers. And it's not only Wizards of the Coast. I have seen people be overly critical of Cubicle 7 Games, Modifius Entertainment, Troll Lord Games, which I'm kind of surprised by. But I have seen some of the folks at Troll Lord Games take flack for stupid nonsense. If those people spent the same amount of energy on promoting what they like, right? So it's like, oh, okay, well, I fucking hate Dungeons and Dragons and those cocksuckers over at Wizards of the Coast, but they happen to really enjoy Kobold Press. Sure would be nice to see them singing Kobold Press's praises as opposed to just pissing on Wizards of the Coast. The Viper VC is with us in chat. Welcome aboard. Chris Lundgren says, oh boy, their wife came home from work so cheery, so they have to be careful. Usually it's the opposite of that. Why, Chris, are you going to ruin her good mood? Is that what's going to go? Is that what's going to happen? Doom Colonist says, the way I see it, a variety of game systems should mean folks can find what works for them. Why waste time on social media campaigns against a specific game? That's a bad use of somebody's time. I don't know. I guess hatred makes people feel good. It warms the cockles of their heart, I guess. I don't know. Zarathustra says, make a note, most new people who play role-playing games are unaware of drive-through RPG. They only know 5e. Why would you buy a 2.0 blender when 5.0 exists? Yep. Keith Lewis says, what the hell? No way Troll Lord should take any flack. Oh, but they have. There was some swirling controversy around Troll Lord games just prior to Gamehole Con. And it was for something really stupid and not tabletop gaming related whatsoever. Viper BC says they found Call of Cthulhu through the gaming gang. They were ready to move on from Dungeons and Dragons, saying thanks. Well, you're very welcome. And that's the purpose of the website as well as this show and this channel. It's to show you all the different stuff that's out there. And we launched back in 2010, not videos, just the website and our podcast, which we had at that time. And it was to show people it wasn't just Fantasy Flight Games, Mayfair Games. It wasn't like, oh, there's only 2 game companies. It's like, as an example, it's not with role-playing games. It's not just Wizards of the Coast. And it's funny because there are a good number of people who got started in the hobby, probably a majority of role players. Not necessarily maybe game masters, but role players who got their start by playing Dungeons and Dragons. And then enjoyed it enough to be wondering, hey, I wonder what else is out there. And yeah, I also don't understand the people who are like, oh, it's Dungeons and Dragons or nothing. Those are the kind of people that I don't know what kind of players they must be, but I kind of get the feeling I would probably not want them at my table because they would be problem children. You know, where it's like, oh, the adventure's got to revolve around my character. It's all about my character. You know, we talk about the person who sits at home and spends 5 hours concocting their character and this detailed backstory, and then it's got to be shoehorned into the adventure that's going to be run. It's like, no. To me, that's a problem child. Chris Lundgren says, no, the wife was pissed at the traffic and lines at the grocery store and had to rant at them when she came in. Well, I mean, she's had a rough day. It's your job, man. You're there to comfort your wife when she has a bad day. I'm sure she's there comforting you when you have bad days. Yes, the single guy is going to lecture the married guy on how marriage works. Random guy says, YouTube is the only social media they have. The rest I deleted decades ago. Good for you. Sadly, to help promote the gaming gang, I got to be on social media. Although I got to say, I am kind of kicking the tires of getting rid of it. But the thing is, it's such a struggle to get viewers on the videos. Not visitors to the website, not at all. Then it's like, Chris says his wife thinks I'm awesome because I make her smile. I aim to please. That's all I can tell you. Not really. Just I do what I think is right. Richard Harris says, it seems like a significant portion of the population looks for reasons to be offended. Oh, God, yes. Oh, God. And an opportunity to talk endlessly about it. You know, it's funny because they always said, wasn't it the 80s were supposed to be the me generation? That everybody was all focused on themselves. What was that? I remember that book. And then it was a movie with Michael J. Fox. I read the book and saw the movie. And it was kind of about, you know, everybody being so self-absorbed. It was like, wow, you certainly did not see the 2020s coming. Because if there's ever been a me generation, it's more than just a generation. It's like a virus. It's a mind virus. Hate that stupid term. So, Break Lushfist says, I like when players give me NPC ideas from their backstory. Giving their characters a one-shot adventure of their own is pretty fun for those writer PCs. It's fine if it's, I mean, like most of the players I deal with, they'll come up with a backstory. But what I try to do, especially when we're you know, I'm running a new game or it's a new campaign or whatever, is I try to find ways that the player characters tie together. So I will have, depending on how many people I've got. So if I've got 4 or 5 players, I'll start off with one person and I'll say, okay, so you got to pick another person around the table and you have to tell me what is the relationship, what is your tie to their character? That they have a commonality or something, right? That bonds them together. Not that, because I hate the whole like stupid bullshit role-playing conflict in your group. Get the fuck out of here with that nonsense. It's fine when your players disagree about something and they kind of role play a little bit of conflict, but the nonsense where it's like, oh, these two characters hate each other and blah, blah. And it's like, you know what? We're not going there. I'm not going to sit through that shit because that kind of nonsense just derails everything. Anyway, so that's what I'll normally do. And then when the first person picks the second person, then the second person has to choose someone else. And how does their character tie in with someone else's character? So we go around the table that way so that we establish some sort of bonds with the adventuring party as opposed to just, well, you're all sitting in a tavern and it's a Call of Cthulhu adventure. Viper BC says they like that Call of Cthulhu has solo scenarios to play when groups are hard to come by. The solo scenarios are also a very good way for keepers to learn how to run the game. That's one of the extra bonuses with that as well. Zarathustra says solo is growing fast, which is sad. Call of Cthulhu is good because your average party is 4 players, but 1 player and GM works fine. Yeah, that's true. The duet play. In fact, we were talking about a Call of Cthulhu adventure last night that I could see would work very nicely for duet play as long as the keeper had an NPC accompanying the player character, or, you know, working with the player character. Because that way, if something happened to the player character, well, then that NPC becomes a player character. So there is that. All right. So in reality, as far as a topic tonight, I don't understand the point. What gets accomplished by people complaining about, or venting hatred or spewing hatred about a role-playing game that person has really no interest in playing or purchasing any products from. They don't support that publisher. It's like, come on, who cares? Just let them fall off a cliff if they do. Who cares? Focus on the stuff you enjoy. I try to focus on the positive within our hobby. And that has been my goal since I got involved doing this going on 15 years ago. So, all righty, let's see. Any final thoughts in chat? Chris Lundgren's promoting competition once again in chat. Dragon's Foot is the home for the best first edition AD&D resources. I am familiar with Dragonfoot, and I don't go to a lot of other websites. I just don't have time. It'd be nice if I did, to be honest. It really would. It would be nice if I had time to be like, oh yeah, I guess I can go hang out at whatever role-playing game website. Viper BC says their daughter wants to learn Call of Cthulhu. The one-on-one scenarios will be great for that. Don't run the haunted house, or in old editions, it was known as the haunting. It just doesn't, I ran it. In fact, there's a little side story here, which I don't think I've ever shared. Maybe if I have, I did it once. When I bought Call of Cthulhu, I bought it when it came out. So that would be 1981. And I remember running it, the haunting adventure, with my brother. Now, I only have one brother, my brother Greg. And if you visit thegaminggang.com, he's the guy who posts the upcoming comic book releases and stuff like that. And he was not a role player. He had played Dungeons and Dragons before I had, back in probably 77, 78-ish. I think he was like 8th grade. And he played before I ever played. And they played for a bit, and then that was it. And then he hadn't played role-playing games at all. And I convinced him to play The Haunting. And I ran that, and he was like, yeah, it was fine. And I was like, yeah, I know. Right? Now, my brother is part of our group that we play role-playing games and stuff. So, and he tends to bring the proceedings to a screeching halt. Because he's always like, no, wait, well, I don't know if we should do that. I don't know if you should push that cherry red button that says don't push. Hang on, wait, I don't know. Sort of like, you do realize this isn't you personally. So, Thooster says he's that guy. Yeah, he's that guy. He's not like a problem or anything like that, but it is kind of funny, especially when I was running Call of Cthulhu, and it's like, oh man. Oh boy. Game Cat asked if I get 5% on print on demand orders at drive-thru as well. I do believe so, as long as you go through the banner ads over at thegaminggang.com. I believe so. All righty. So that is it for this time out. On tomorrow's show, we're going to continue my Let's Build a Fantasy Role-Playing Game series. In fact, once we're done, hopefully there'll be a lot of people bitching about it on social media. I hate that fucking game. And we're going to talk about combat. And I am going to share some thoughts I've got about speeding up combat, making combat deadly. I like deadly combat, but also making it more narrative as opposed to, oh, I roll, oh, I hit, oh, I did 3 points damage. Okay, all right, okay, okay, next. So by all means, pop on in and check that out tomorrow night. All righty. So if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, tip of the cap to you, because not only you're keeping me company, you're keeping each other company as I just ramble on about things. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. In fact, there are over 2,100 of them. Yowza. If you like the video, by all means, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, currently Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as today's review of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Tribes and Tribulations from Cubicle 7 Games. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.